Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is our next chapter, chapter 6, and basically the day one notes is worksheet 1. Okay, so it's got two different types of problems on here. These are all called rational expressions. Okay, rational expressions literally just mean fractions, kind of the fancy name for a fraction. Okay, so if you look at this fraction, it says find the value of x that makes the expression undefined. So what makes something undefined, right? You either have, if you have like 0 over 5 versus 5 over 0, which one is undefined? You guys should think this one, right? This one is undefined, 5 over 0. So when the denominator is 0, it's undefined. So how you can think of it a lot of different ways, right? Undefined, under, right? If the 0 is under, then it's undefined. Basically, the reason it's undefined is if I look at the first one, the 0 over 5, what times 5 is 0? Well, you would say 0. That's why this one's equal to 0. But this one is saying, well, what times 0 is 5? And there's nothing times 0 that's 5. That's why this one's undefined. So when I ask you which one's undefined, literally you're going to look at only the denominator. Okay? So when the denominator equals 0. I don't care about the numerator. I don't care about the top. I only care about the bottom. Literally, you're going to set the bottom equal to 0 and solve. So there's a lot of factoring involved here too. Okay, it's all part of chapter 5 is factoring. So for the first one, I'm going to say x minus 8 equals 0. That's when it's undefined. So I solve for x. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. X equals 8. And that's how you do. So x is 8. You can write just 8 there. I don't care. X equals 8. It doesn't matter. So literally you set the bottom equal to 0. I don't care about the top. I don't care about the 5. I don't care about the 7x. So I say x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to both sides, so x equals 4. There we go. That's where it's undefined. Okay, this one, you add x squared minus 9 equals 0. So this is from last chapter. It's a difference of two squares. So x plus 3, x minus 3 equals 0. So x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So subtract 3 from both sides, x equals negative 3, and add 3 to both sides, x equals 3. There we go. X equals negative 3 and 3. That's where it's undefined. Okay, let's look at number 4. 4 is a little tricky. You guys should look at this and say, wait a second, this is not a difference of two squares. This is actually a sum. It's got a plus sign in there. And we don't know how to factor that. There's a reason we don't know how to factor it is because you can't factor it. And so think logically too. What number can I square and add to 9 to give me 0? Right? If I did set this up, if I went x squared plus 9 equals 0, is there a number you can square to add to 9 to equal 0? No, because whatever number you square is going to become positive. You could do 0 squared, but this will never be negative right here. So if we add 9 to something that's already positive, there's no way you're going to get a 0 here. So this, it says what value of x? I'm going to write none. Okay? There is no value of x that will make that 0. That's kind of a tricky one. Okay, this next one, I'm just going to factor that. So you can do a factor box if you want, but you get x minus 3, x minus 2. So add 3 and add 2. So you get x equals 3 and x equals 2. There we go. So 3 and 2. Okay, this one I can do greatest common factor is x. So factor out x, and I get x minus 3 equals 0. So I get x equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. So add 3, so x equals 3. So 0 and 3. Okay, so that is the first part. You're going to see a couple questions like this in your quiz, but that's the very first part is I ask you find the value for x that makes the expression undefined. Very simple. You set the denominator equal to 0. Super easy. Okay? All right, so let's look at the second part here. All right, math fans, for the second part, basically what you're doing is to simplify the following rational expressions. You're basically reducing the fraction. Okay? So like the first one, guys, you can put this in your calculator. Okay, you should know there's so many different kinds of calculators. So if you don't know how to use your calculator button or the fraction button on your calculator, talk to me. All right, and I can help you with it. Or do a YouTube on it, and type your calculator name and say, reduce fractions. And it'll probably show you how to do it either on YouTube or just on just something in Google. Okay, so if I have 30 over 24, first of all, it's got a y on top, and there's no y on the bottom to deal with it. So the y is going to stay on top. But if I reduce 30 over 24, I get 5/4. So this is the answer. This one is 5/4. That's what 30 over 24 is, and that's y. So 5y over 4. Okay. Do you guys agree the 12s cancel out and the x-fifths? In fact, it's the same on the top and the bottom. It's automatically 1. Okay, that's pretty easy. Okay, the next one. Again, we're going to do the variables separately, but 16 over 60, okay, reduces to 4/15. And then remember, well, this is a y to the 1. I'm just going to write it in here. And you're doing a battle between the x's and the y's. So if I do a battle between the x's, who wins? The bottom wins by 2. If I do a battle of the y's, who wins the top by 1? So there you go, 4y over 15x squared. Okay, pretty easy, right? This next one, the x minus 7s, you have one there, so it crosses out. And then who wins with the x? That's x to the 1. Well, the top wins by 1. So this is just x to the 1 on top over 1, really. So the answer is just x. If you put x to the 1, I guess that's okay too, okay? But usually you don't do that. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, so let's keep going here. A little more complicated, no big deal. Do you guys agree this is x minus 3 and this is x minus 3? It's like saying x over x squared. Well, the bottom wins, for the x minus 3, the bottom wins by 1. So I'm going to cross this off, and that's just to the 1 power. So the x minus 3 is just left on the bottom. And then I do battle with the y's because there's no x to do battle. So I have x cubed. On the bottom, I have y minus 3. And I do battle with the y's, and the y wins on the bottom by 2. So y squared. And that's your answer. X cubed over y squared, y minus 1. Or y minus 3. Okay? That's not bad. All right. So now number 12, guys, we're getting into factoring now. Okay? You got to know how to do that. So you should recognize there's a difference of two squares. So you should write a y here and a 9. So it's going to be y plus 9 and y minus 9. Okay, the bottom is a greatest common factor. So I can divide both sides by 2. So you get 2 y minus 9. Okay, here's the deal. You can only cancel out if it has the exact same thing in the top and the bottom, like for a y minus 9. So in other words, this has a y minus 9, you cancel it out. If that was on top, y plus 9, y minus 4, you could not do anything to cancel anything out. Okay, it's got to be exactly the same in order to cancel it out. So my answer to this problem is y plus 9 over 2. Okay, it's not bad. All right, so this is kind of a special case, and I want you guys to learn this. See how this is x minus 3 and 3 minus x? It's just flipped around. I'm going to show you the long way to do it first, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut. Okay, so it's really x minus 3 over, if I switch this around and write negative x plus 3, I'm going to factor out a negative 1 on the bottom. So watch what happens. If I factor negative 1, I get x minus 3 on top again, and I factor out negative 1, and I get negative over negative is a positive, so x minus 3. So notice the x minus 3's now can cancel out because you have the same at the top and the bottom. And you really have 1 over negative 1, which is negative 1. So here's the shortcut, math fans. If you have a term like this, notice what it is. This is x minus 3 over 3 minus x. Okay, so it's the same terms, 3 and an x, but they're just in different locations. They're just kind of swapped. Okay, so that's automatically equal to negative 1. So if I have a problem like, let me just write it kind of above here a little bit. If I have 5 minus x over x minus 5, it's automatically negative 1. If I have 73x plus 14, sorry, 73x minus 14 over 14 minus 73x, See, that's the same thing except it's just flipped around with the minus signs. That's equal to -1. You just have to remember that. Okay, so you don't really have to do this. I mean, I did a lot of work here, right, factoring it. But again, if it's 2x minus 3 over 3 minus 2x. So same thing. The 2x is here and the 3 is here, but they're switched around. This is automatically equal to -1. Okay, so you should know that. It's important. Okay. All right, 14 is definitely a factoring problem. So that's going to be, if you factor the top, it's a difference of 2 squares. So x plus 6, x minus 6. Okay, the bottom, do a factor box if you want. X squared, -12, -4x. So it's x and x. And it's going to be -6 and 2. It's going to work out. So -6x and 2x is -4x. So it's x minus 6, x plus 2. All right, and you can only cancel things out that are exactly the same. So x minus 6 cancels out, and that's it. So your answer for this problem is x plus 6 over x plus 2. Okay, not bad. Got a couple more here. This is definitely greatest common factor, definitely. So I have 3x squared y plus x. What's my greatest common factor? They both have x. That's the only thing they have. So if I factor an x out of there, if I divide it, I get 3x y, and then x divided by x is 1. Don't forget that. Sometimes kids just like cross it off and they just have 3xy. But if I redistribute it, you're going to have 3x squared y plus x, which is exactly what I have up here. Okay? And then over 3xy plus 1. So there's nothing I can do at the bottom. So notice, this is exactly the same. So I can cross it off. So my answer is just x. Okay? Last problem, got to do factor boxes for both the top and the bottom. So let's do that. This is for the top. X squared, -3, 2x. So x and x. And then 3 and -1. Because that gives you 3x minus 1x is 2x. So it's x plus 3, x minus 1. That's for this guy right here. So let me just write it out. X plus 3, x minus 1. Okay, and then the bottom, another factor box. So x squared, 6, 5x. So again, x and x. And 6 is going to be 2 times 3. Because 2x and 3x is 5x. Okay, so it's x plus 2, x plus 3. Okay, that's the top and bottom. And what do you cancel? X plus 3, x plus 3, and that's it. That's all I can do. So my answer is x minus 1 over x plus 2. Okay, so we kind of learned a little bit about, with the factoring. You're doing battle. That was pretty easy. Use your graphing calculator or use your calculator to simplify fractions. And determine where an expression is undefined. Okay, so that's it, math fans. That's it for worksheet 1. So basically, worksheet 2 is your homework, and that has all the different kinds of problems on it. Okay, lots of different kinds of problems. Again, don't forget, especially this guy right here. Kids tend to forget this one. The 3 minus this guy right here. Okay, 3 minus, or x minus 3 over 3 minus x, automatically -1. Okay? All right, so that's it, math fans. Hopefully you guys are good to go, and you have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.